Here we are in front of another Gene Trent sign. Let me tell you something about Gene Trent signs. Have you noticed that none of them are on people's properties? They are on commercial properties, the property of real estate developers. Have you noticed that? If you go up and down the road and you see a Gene Trent sign, notice where the signs are. Notice that the parents for Gene Trent signs aren't on the homes of parents. There's no parents for Gene Trent. That would be like blue crowds for nurse sharks. Gene Trent is an ordinary self-serving elected official that says they're for you. Students over politics? Collusion's a big word, right? Well, let's figure this out. This man almost certainly colluded with the other 4 members of the Brevard County School Board. And if not, then I've got a couple questions. Why was the mayor of Cape Canaveral, Wes Morrison, stopped from going to the meeting at Cape View Elementary about the future of Cape View Elementary? Why were the voices of parents and students and community members and stakeholders cut from the television and internet broadcast of the Brevard County School Board members? Why were all of the people that showed up in support of Cape View Elementary at the Brevard County School Board meetings all the way in Vieira stopped from being heard, having their voices cut off at the mic, stopped from having their opinions heard? Why were the public comment section cut from television broadcast and internet broadcast? Why? If this is about students over politics, then how is it that none of the voices are allowed to be heard publicly, and yet all 5 Brevard County School Board members voted in lockstep with one another against Cape View Elementary? This sign's right in front of Frank the barber shop. Why doesn't Gene Trent go in Frank the barber shop and ask Frank what he thinks about Gene Trent voting against Cape View Elementary? Do you know how many generations of students have had their haircuts at Frank the barber's? You know why Gene Trent doesn't go into Frank the barber's and ask what he thinks about that closing? Because he doesn't care. Here's what Cape View had going against it. It's oceanfront and beachside property. Its value is too great. Gene Trent voting against Cape View Elementary had nothing to do with pro formas. And for the record, America is not a pro forma nation. America is a performer nation. And Gene Trent voting against Cape View, I can only say this. I'm almost certain that Gene Trent's parents are disappointed in him because he voted against a 60-year institution. And if his parents are, then his grandparents are. And I'll tell you why, because it was that generation that put that school in place, that invested in this community, that historically served the students of NASA astronauts as well as future NASA astronauts. You know how many students Gene Trent voted against? You know how many families Gene Trent voted against? He didn't just vote against the 300 students that went there and the 600 parents and all of the teachers and all of the small businesses that were supported by Cape View Elementary. Gene Trent voted against generations of success. Gene Trent voted against a legacy. Gene Trent voted against America. Well, I want you to know that my name is Mike Mongo. I am lifelong opposed to Gene Trent from here on out. I would never vote for Gene Trent again. You know the saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I would vote for a 3-legged dog before I voted again for Gene Trent. Gene Trent is not for us, he's against us. The election is coming up. Vote for anybody but Gene Trent. In the words of my people, Cape Canaveral for life, pow pow pow.